Great.
Please.
So Carol won't be coming. She's in Ontario this week and next week.
I thought that was your bike counselor.
Yeah, it's not. Six questions. Amanda, do you want to start? Sashi Purki Joshi Meitong Tramri Rabling Shi Nyande Gan Padi Sange Shindu Mikte Uam Gita Gunanda Shingla Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratnamadala Sange Chudam Toki Chaknana Janchu Badu Nagni Kapsuchi Naki Jinemi Pe Sunamki Nola Pinchir Sange Drupashu Sange Chulam Toki Chaklam Janchu Badu Nagni Kapsuchi Naki Jinemi Pe Sunamki Nola Pinchir Sange Drupashu Sange Chulam Toki Chaklam Yangchu Baru Agni Kapsuchi Naki Jinyan Yipe Sunamki Drula Pinchu Sange Drupashu. Okay, so this is class 3. Can anybody give me a short little recap on what we've discussed so far? To peek myself because I'm drawing a complete blank.
We're learning about the diamond cutter sutra.
Yeah.
And diamonds are the hardest substance, the most absolute substance. So comparable to emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let somebody else take over from there.
Another quality is it's so clear that if you had a wall of diamonds, you can see through them.
Yeah.
And the third one is that if you break it into little pieces, no matter how small they are, they all have the same physical quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
And you can cut through anything with a diamond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're using a diamond as a metaphor because it's the closest thing that we have in our world to an ultimate, right? But it is not actually, compared to emptiness, it's not even close. But in our physical world, this is what the closest thing is, so that's what we use. What else did we talk about?
5 paths.
Sorry?
5 different paths.
Yeah, 5 different paths. We have spoken about those, indeed.
4 places of being born.
Yeah,
Right.
good.
And then that's the cutter.
The 4 places of being born.
it's called the diamond. The cutter in the word diamond is because that if you experience emptiness, it cuts through. I guess even you'll cut through a diamond. Maybe that's not the right way. One of the quiz questions.
Yeah.
That by experiencing emptiness, that
Do you cut through like self-nature? If that makes sense.
that's so powerful that it's like cutting through a diamond.
Cut through self-nature? Cut
Mhm.
through
So-
concept?
That's getting closer. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like why the word cutter was in the title, and that was one of
Yeah. So emptiness outshines the diamond.
the. Yeah,
It cuts through
it cuts through.
all the misperceptions that we have, right? Self, nature. Yeah. Is this recording? Yeah. I feel like I should double check. Yeah. Great. So, and Subhuti, he asked the question, right? And that's how we got to all those beings, the different places, the different kinds of beings that we have in the last class. So what did Subhuti want to know?
How does a bodhisattva live in the world?
Yeah.
Through thoughts and actions, speech.
Yeah. And then Lord Buddha's reply was to that, we need to bring all beings to enlightenment. And who are all beings? Those four, right? Which are what? The four ways. There were all these different divisions on how we could divide all beings. And one of the ones was the four ways of being born, right? Which was a womb, egg,
Humidity, moisture.
moisture, refuge. Yeah, great. Okay, so rocking it. I think that's good. Let's get a little recap.
And then we talked about grief.
Because we want to take them beyond grief. We want to take them to enlightenment. And what is grief?
Self-affliction.
Yeah. So it had three components, right? Grief. One of them was all the mental afflictions, which then, if you act on your mental afflictions, you are creating what? Karma, which then leads to suffering. Yeah. Yeah. And we talked a bit about, labeling. We label things, right?
And nirvana.
Nirvana. Yeah. So taking them beyond grief would be taking them to nirvana, right? Because if you have no more mental afflictions, you are in nirvana because you've eliminated them all, right? What's left is no grief. So the lack of grief is joy, bliss. So then the next reading starts off with this sentence. Say, Mi nepe, Jangsem Jimpa,
Jongsem Jumpa.
Jinatse Sungwar Mila. Me, as you might recall, I've said it before, is often like a negative in Tibetan, so we know it means something like doesn't. In this case, it means doesn't. So nepe means stay, so doesn't stay. Jangsem is bodhicitta. Jinpa is giving, and Jina is the rest. Se is measurement. Sungwar is to take, and Mila is not easy. So it, basically what it means is a bodhisattva that doesn't stay what they mean by this is a bodhisattva who doesn't stay is someone who does not stay in self-grasping. Doesn't stay grasping to things being self-existent, right? So a bodhisattva who doesn't stay, and then it's not easy to measure how powerful the deeds are. Basically, that's what it translates to. Okay. So when a bodhisattva that doesn't stay does any action, you can measure very easily how powerful that is, how much merit they are collecting. And Lord Buddha is saying in this text, can you measure the space that's to the right of you? Can you measure all the space that's to the left of you? That's not easy to measure because it just keeps going, right? So that's pretty much how powerful it is to do a deed as a bodhisattva who does no longer believe in any self-existence. And what was a bodhisattva again? What is a bodhisattva?
Someone who wants to become enlightened for the sake of all other living beings, to help them all become free from suffering.
Yeah. So someone with that deep wish. So we can have bodhisattvas. I think Serena asked this before, like, when can you become a bodhisattva? I seem to think you asked it, maybe not.
Yeah, what I said is that can you stay in the bodhisattva realm without going to the next? Like we were talking about Kuan Yin, who is a deity who has chosen to stay in that realm.
Right. Okay, so we can say that anybody who hasn't seen emptiness directly could be a bodhisattva, if you are wishing to become enlightened and want to help all beings. So you could maybe see it as like you're a mini bodhisattva. At the moment that you see emptiness directly with that wish in your heart, then you're like a true bodhisattva, officially card-carrying bodhisattva, right? Until that time, you're in training to become like a true one. Pretending, yeah. But, if you are training to have an understanding of karma and emptiness and you are doing deeds with that understanding, like you're already really kicking some serious butt. And then after you see emptiness directly, then you're really, really rocking because then you are on your way out. So why would it be so powerful? Why would it be so hard to measure how powerful it is to do deeds when you are a bodhisattva? Why would it be so powerful? And why? What's the difference? Like, why is it more powerful for someone who's like a true bodhisattva to do something rather than someone who's like a mini bodhisattva?
It's just imbued with a different essence, different power.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Possibilities for ripening, how the actions are going to ripen are just limitless.
But why?
Because they don't have any because they eliminated all the bad deeds. Those karmic deeds have all ripened.
Not necessarily. Like, you can see emptiness directly with bodhicitta in your heart, and the next day still be afflicted. You can still have stuff that needs to ripen. I mean, it depends. You know, some people may do most of their work already before they see emptiness, and then after they see emptiness, there's not a whole lot left to ripen. I mean, it can definitely go that way. But it's not like it's impossible to have bad stuff happen after you see emptiness.
But you just don't react to it, though.
But you don't react to it because you know how things work.
And you
does it have to do with the mind? When you're a mini Bodhisattva, you actually have to put more mental thought into every good deed you do. But when you're a Bodhisattva, you should actually naturally be moving in through that. And your mind is working less, and you're just moving through it without thinking as much about having to work through it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. So you just know, right? So when you just know, you don't have to think about it very much.
you lose all doubt.
You have no more doubt left.
Yeah.
And you just know. So when we are bodhisattvas in training, we might need to remind ourselves, like, all the time, right? When someone's annoying to us, we want to react back, and then we're like thinking, oh no, in Dharma class I learned that's not a smart idea, because if I'm going to react back, I'm going to keep the wheel spinning, right? But in order to cut it, I better not react on that instinct feeling of yelling back, because how dare they, you know? So it takes a little bit more effort. But then it becomes more of a habit over time, and by studying and meditating, it does become easier. But yeah, I think that what Nina says is very accurate. After you see it, you just know. And it would be stupid to act otherwise. It's like, you know, if you know that smoking causes cancer, you'd be stupid to smoke. It just doesn't make sense, right? So if you know that yelling back at someone out of a place of anger and disgust or something, you know that it's just going to bring more suffering, then why would you do that? If you really know that, right? So until you really know that, yeah, you got to remind yourself. That makes sense, right? So Bodhisattva knows that they are just looking at pixels, and they are making this into a picture that they throw on it, right? And that picture that you throw on something, that you label on something, you can't help it, what you're seeing, you know? You're forced to see it. I mean, an object, like I'm forced to see this as a teapot. I can't help it, right? And there's no problem with that. It's perfectly fine. And it's easy with an object like that. But say a couple weeks ago, I met with my friend and we went out for dinner. She's my oldest friend. We actually went to kindergarten together in Holland, and somehow ended up both here in Canada, which is crazy. Anyways, we had dinner, and then we went back to our cars. They were parked in a dark alley. And I was just in her car, sitting for a little bit, chatting a little bit more, and then give each other a hug to go. But right as I was about to leave, I saw the corner of my eye, this man come in this dark alley, right? He's coming towards the car. And whatever, I didn't think anything of it. It's fine. I knew he was coming to us. I thought, you know, he might need something. Could be anything, right? Maybe his car broke down or whatever. Now my friend, she can be a little bit eccentric. So this man comes to the window and does like this, right, on her, and she's sitting at the driver's seat, and then this face is right here, and she didn't expect it. I saw him coming, so for me it wasn't a shocker, but she just saw me look, and then she looks over and she sees his face here. Well, she just starts screaming from the top of her lungs. Because she thought it's like a serial killer, right? Like in a horror movie, it's dark, it's like kind of a scary alley, then you have this face in your window of your car. And it was so funny. Anyways, we had a complete different experience there. But what the great thing is that it made me laugh so hard, and then she had to laugh so hard, and then she was trying to get away, and then the car would stall, and meanwhile she was screaming through all of this, and I was laughing so hard, and then we ended up laughing like I have not laughed like that for years. I had stomach ache, like muscle pain for days after that. I think we just laughed for like 20 minutes. We couldn't stop. So, who was this guy, right? Who was he?
What happened to him?
Well, in the end, we got away, right? So we'll never know. We'll never know what he did or what he wanted. But what I'm trying to say is that my experience, was completely different than hers. And then my perception actually changed again because I started thinking about it. Like, who was he? Like, that could have easily been a Buddha showing up for a second in order to bring us closer together, have this laughter fest, that neither of us had forever. That was just so wonderful and brought us, we already had a great night, but now it's like, we'll remember this in 20 years, right? We can still laugh about it. Every time I think about it, it makes me laugh. So who was that guy, right? It could have just been all a big setup to just bring us together in that moment, right? Or not. Who knows? I don't know. But I like to think like that. But who was right? Was she right? Was I right? Neither or both, right? So the guy wasn't scary from his own side. The guy wasn't friendly from his own side. He was in that moment what we labeled him to be, which, a third person would have seen something else, right? So a bodhisattva knows this. They know this all the time, that's what they do. They just label things. And they know that they're forced to see things the way they do because of their past deeds.
And past experiences, though, which are from past deeds. Because it's all based, she might have seen a lot of serial killer programs and films, right?
Sure.
And then
it's all imprinted, right, in the mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So whether something is pleasant or not pleasant, it completely...
It's just a stimulus.
Yeah. So the guy is just a guy. It's, it's your personal karma, however you experience this. So a bodhisattva knows that, truly knows that. Right?
So that's like our self-responsibility. Our self-responsibility is to understand that whatever happens is simply a stimulus. It's not one thing or another, and whatever we then experience is our responsibility.
And that's very freeing, right? Because we like to blame.
It's not a cause, right? It's a stimulus.
We just always want to blame other people, and that doesn't make us any happier. So when we can take responsibility, we don't have to get mad at other people. We don't have to waste our energy blaming, We know that everything is caused, and you're forced to experience it that way. And you don't like what you see? Okay, then just let it ripen and plant something else. That will ripen into something more pleasant. You cannot be scared of a person in the alley if you don't have the causes to be scared. You can't. So you can walk around downtown East Side and have no fear whatsoever if you don't have causes to be fearful, right? And if you do feel fearful, then you know, okay, I have created this myself. It has nothing to do with my surroundings, right? Yeah.
So many people label the downtown East Side as scary.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, from my perception, you know, there's very little danger down there towards the general public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is your, you know, your amazing karma to be able to, you know, Yasmin works down there, so she's there all the time, and she has this amazing karma to just walk around there, help all the people, you know.
But it's hard for people down there, right? Because people roll up the windows, they kind of blur at them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the causes for fear, you will not feel fear. You can't. It's impossible. Yeah.
I guess you don't want to, you know, I think it's the same way you're saying when you maybe remember that everything is a projection. Some people might go, well, then I don't care about anything. I don't do anything. You wouldn't want us to kind of walk on the street and say, well, let's see if I have karma to get hit. You don't want to test it. Yeah.
Well, it functions. It doesn't mean that nothing exists. I mean, if you go on the street, you will get hit, most likely. I mean, the extent of your hurt can be, you know, in various degrees. You can instantly be dead, or maybe you don't feel anything. You just walk away like, oh, that didn't even hurt, or, you know.
Like survivors from a car crash or plane crash, and they have the karma to not get hurt.
Yeah. So no, I'm not saying like go and
survive it.
Don't bring it upon yourself.
Yeah.
Like, don't meet it halfway.
Yeah.
No, because it functions. Like your reality, the way you see it, is real. It functions. However, you know, you just have to remember yourself that you are the one who's creating it. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It does exist. It definitely does.
Yeah, car is not a marker. It's not just a projection.
Yeah.
We're just labeling it a car. It can't hurt us. It's really a marker.
So
there is, you know, those times where you know you've just been saved, or you know something didn't happen to you, and then you can thank your good karma for, you know, that, you know, it could have happened and could have been bad, but it didn't. But you know, we don't know when it's gonna what will ripen.
No, you don't know. So, you know, basically that means, and the Bodhisattva knows this, you just be kind. Be kind. And yeah, you don't know what you've done before, what might ripen, but you do have power in the now, and be nice to people. And the more wisdom you have, like those things will ripen quicker. You know, you can see it as the old bad karmas kind of being pushed to the back, and then the things that you are doing with wisdom will be more towards the front, right? The more wisdom you have, the quicker things ripen. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're saying that people who survive everything, so the things that have happened to them is the negative karma, and the fact that they're surviving all the time. Is the now karma? Is that what you're kind of
Sure, but you know, I mean, even something that you might experience as negative in a year from now, you could think, wow, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, right? Maybe in that moment you think it as negative, but it doesn't. That's also just a label. That label, your experience can shift, right? When you look back at things, you know, when my heart was broken, at that moment, I just wanted to die, like, you know, be crying in my bed for a year. But then when I look back at it, I'm thinking that was the best thing that I ever had, because it softened my heart, it opened my heart, it it helped me ripen all this crappy stuff and brought me to the place where I am right now, right? So you can think of it like that. But yeah, I mean, the only reason why you could hurt so much is because you hurt other people.
I mean, yeah, that is the definition of I'm forgetting the exact term in the Karma course about an experience which doesn't feel good is not a good. It's from
Good comes from good, bad comes from bad.
yeah, exactly. Even that experience there, you did have the bad. You're right. 1 year later, you can see it differently, but that experience was
caused by something negative.
Yeah. So had karma that you had
Yeah.
to someone else.
So when well, you know what? We've all been. So don't worry about that. The fact that you're here, you've been like really good.
Yeah.
And bad.
The fact that you're in this class, like they're actually saying in this class, why is it more virtuous to be here in this class rather than filling an entire planet with beautiful treasures and giving it to somebody? It's more virtuous to be here. And the reason for that is that here you're learning to get out of the cycle of suffering, to get out of pain. And that's something that's worth so much because you'll be able to help other people do the same, right? So the fact that you're here and that you can hear this, yeah, that says something about you, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and that's also what they say, like the word Dharma, the root dur comes from the Sanskrit word that means restrain. So it basically means that you're holding yourself back from responding negatively, right, to something.
Did you say the root dur?
Dur.
Dur
Yeah.
is the...
Yeah, it means like restraint or holding back. Meaning what you learn here in the Dharma class is everything you need to know when someone starts yelling at you next time, right? And you can think, oh, yeah, what does dur mean again? Okay, holding back. Okay, so I'm going to hold back. I'm not going to.
I prefer holding back than restrained, because when you said restrained, everything inside of me went, I don't want to be restrained. Don't restrain me.
You know, it's just like knowing that it will hurt you if you're going to react that way, right? So at the beginning, this wisdom is totally intellectual, but then over time, it becomes ingrained. And it can be difficult, you know, at first. And then it just gets easier. It's difficult because, you know, it's saying that the things in the world are caused by something different than we always thought, you know. We thought, like, if I have a good job, I'll make a lot of money. You know, that's how we think cause and effect work. If I go to school, I'll be smart, you know, stuff like that. And here, I'm sitting here telling you the opposite. Telling you that that's not necessarily true, you know. I know people with really good jobs that have no money. I know people with really crappy jobs that have plenty of money, you know. Money doesn't come from work. It doesn't. Money comes from being generous. And, you know, you hear all these stories. My husband was telling me one last week that these two guys that his co-worker knew from high school won $500 million. And they were always really poor. They lived in a tiny little village somewhere in Canada. And so they got a lot of money. And they went crazy. One of them killed themselves. The other one is in the loony bin right now. So, you know, that proves also money does not bring you happiness. it doesn't necessarily mean that, you get 500 million, that you'll have that for the rest of your life. Like, it's all karma, right? What do you have in place? And yeah. So, just to get back to what did we say there? The Bodhisattva doesn't stay. I think I got that. Okay. Okay. So that was the first part of the reading. Then the second part of the reading, the Buddha says, just because a person looks like a Buddha, should we consider him Buddha? And he's asking this to Subhuti. And Subhuti, as we now know, is not a normal student. He's like Manjushri, right? He's a Buddha himself. So he's smart. So he says, no, you shouldn't consider them a Buddha. Okay? There are certain special signs and marks on the Buddha. They have 32 major marks and 80 minor signs. And it's not really told in this class, but
80 minor signs.
80, yeah.
80, what kind of signs?
Minor signs.
Minor.
So the 32 are major marks, and you can think of it like, I don't know them, but I actually Googled it, and there was this long list. So if you want to know them specifically, you can just Google marks of the Buddha, and it will come up. And it actually tells you what the causes are for each mark, which is quite interesting. So you can think of it like long ears, right? He's golden, he's got a bump on his head, jet black hair, very white teeth, hands and feet have Dharma wheels on them, things like that. And then the minor signs have to do with the shape of his hands or fingernails, the shape of his belly button, things like that. So every part, every sign, every mark has been caused by the amazing things that he has done, and that's created this body. Okay. So Buddha is very distinctive, and they say that there's no other being that has these marks aside from a fully enlightened being. Now there's one name that comes up is Chakravartin. That is a being that comes close to that. So they have some marks too. And what they are is a being that is a real emperor. It's a kind of being, because of collecting such incredible virtue, they become king of the world, king of an entire planet. And a king, in the old days is kind of hard to imagine, but it wouldn't be like President Obama. It would be way like everybody. Well, first of all, the king owns everything, so they would just say, I'm going to take your car right now because I own it anyways, or your land or whatever. Sometimes it was misused too, because they'll say, I'll take your wife, right? Very powerful, and the king would own everything. Anyways, but the highest kind of Chakravartins, they have such virtue that all the beings, all the people on the planet want them to be a king. Okay. So they are virtuous beings that have some of the signs, but they don't have all of them.
Is this just in our realm here, or is it in other realms?
It's not really specified. Okay. And I think it's not really important. The message is that no other being has these marks aside from the enlightened being. So the Chakravartin is a being that would come a little bit close, but aside from that, nobody but an enlightened being has these marks. So if you want to learn more about that, you can do some research, but it's not really part of the class.
Is that because the fully enlightened being can appear with all those marks, so we can identify them because they can appear however they wish to appear?
They can appear, yeah, we're getting into that in a moment. So, hold on. So the Buddha asks Subhuti, so Subhuti, if you meet someone with these 112 signs, clear and distinct, are they a Buddha? And Subhuti says, no. So we'll get to the answer later in class on that. This now moves over into the 4 bodies of a Buddha. So there can be some confusion about how many bodies a Buddha has. But in this class, in these courses, we say there's 4. And we'll go over them. And does that mean that a Buddha has 4 different bodies? No, it doesn't. It means that these that we're going over now, they're all parts. You can see there's parts of them. But they say bodies, which can make you confused, right? So it's parts. So body in Tibetan is ku. Say ku. Ku. So the first body is chuku. Say chuku. Often in English we say chuku. You may have heard that before, that term. Yeah. Chuku. So chuku is an emanation body. And you'll hear it in Sanskrit too, which is Nirmanakaya. So chuku is, so you can see it like this. Like the Buddha with all his marks and signs is in paradise, in his own paradise, in Atman they call it, and they are just sending out all these emanations of themselves wherever it's needed. And this is something that's not, it's not like the Buddha thinks, okay, I better go visit Amanda because she's in need, today at 3 o'clock. No, it's spontaneous. Whoever has the karma, they will appear instantly. They don't need to think about that. So it's like the reflection of a moon in water, right? It's not like the moon has to think about it, like, oh, there's a pond, let's reflect myself in it. It doesn't happen like that. It just happens spontaneous, right? It just happens. So that's how they emanate. And they can emanate in different ways. They can emanate as human beings. They can emanate as an animal. They can animate in inanimate objects, which is actually then not called truku, but it's called true pa. So they can appear as bridges or, I don't know, whatever is needed. And they can even appear as smells or tastes. So this is spontaneous. Now,
Meaning the human, we didn't send any message out or anything out to bring them in.
No.
So they just spontaneously.
It just happens, yeah.
For any reason on their part?
Just that the karma is there. So like Hogan was saying, sometimes people survive miraculously. It could have been like, the Buddha could have appeared as whatever was needed in that moment to save their life, right? But it can only do it if the karma is there. If the karma is not there, it cannot. Otherwise he would, because it's a compassionate being. They would save everybody all at once, right now. But they can't.
And when you say they can appear as an animal, is just for an example, is that animal existing and then they just come into that animal being, animate that animal for whatever they need and then leave? Or do they come as an animal?
They can
go.
Yeah, I think it either, or I think it can be from birth. Lord Buddha waiting for that moment to appear to you 6 years later as, as a big to help you somehow. I don't know. Yeah, I think it can totally happen like that. Yeah.
And it's interesting because in my family, we have, over generations, have had books appear and then completely disappear. Like come under the pillow overnight and then they're gone. After the person has read the book, completely disappear. And so that's very interesting. That's what
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's cool. So we can also, as humans, we can go in deep states of meditation, and we can emanate too. This is a little mistake in your notes. It says we can do that without being in deep meditation, but you have to be in deep meditation to do it. So you can go in deep state of meditation and then go and help someone in China or whatever, right? You can have experiences like that. But it's not the same as what an enlightened being can do, because they can do it spontaneous all the time, right? So that's different. I watched this very interesting documentary that's called Tulku that you might want to watch. It's about Tulku. Tulku.
Can you spell it?
Yes, right here.
Tulku.
Yeah, but then without the R, because in English we often say Tulku, so it's Tulka. This is this is about a young guy who's been recognized as a Tulku, right? He's the reincarnation of a great teacher, and he lives in the West. He was born from actually a very famous Tibetan teacher, but he was not raised in a monastery like they would do in Tibet. You know, if they recognize someone, they bring them up in the monastery. So he was brought up in the West. So this documentary is very interesting because he's very confused. He does not know what to do with I'm a Tulku. What am I supposed to do? And do I even want to learn this stuff? Like it's a beautiful. So he's kind of going in a little bit of a search and talking to other recognized Tulkus and see what their experiences are. And it varies. You know, some can take it very seriously. Others don't, and I enjoyed it, so it's worth the watch. So that's the first body, it's an emanation body. So can we see a Tulku? Yeah, you can. If you have the karma to see a Tulku, you can definitely see a Tulku. Can we see the ultimate Tulku, the highest Tulku? No, because then you'd have to be around at the time of the Buddha to see him like that, right? We don't generally see a Buddha with all those 112 marks in her world, right? He is in his paradise, and we can see his emanations if we have the karma for that. So the Tulku is the easiest form of all the four bodies to perceive. Now these four bodies, we can group them in two bodies. We often hear that the Rupakaya and the Dharmakaya, right? So the first two are the Rupakaya, which is the form body of the Buddha. Then the last two is the Dharmakaya, which is the mind of Buddha, right? So that was the first one of the form body, emanation body. So the second one is the enjoyment body, say Longku. And this is in Sanskrit Sambhogakaya. And the enjoyment body is the physical body that the Buddha sees when they look at their own body. Okay, so when they look down it's very pleasurable to see themselves because they are in paradise, and however they perceive themselves is very blissful. So that's the body that you have when you're in your paradise. And there's a few things that are qualities of the Sambhogakaya, of the enjoyment body. So the place, I wrote them down there, place, circle, marks, Dharma, and time. So place refers to, it's always the same, it's Akmin, so it's paradise. And the circle refers to the beings that are in direct surrounding in that paradise. They are all Arya Bodhisattvas. So they're all very high practitioners. They've all seen emptiness directly. So the only people directly around him, the only people that he meets are the Aryas. Okay? So no suffering being can see that ultimate body. And then the third one was the marks. So he has all the 112 marks, 32 marks, 80 minor signs. And then the Dharma is that what he does in paradise is he teaches those Arya Bodhisattvas. He teaches them Dharma. That's what they like to do. Only the highest Dharma, the Mahayana Dharma. That's the main activity. And then the last one was time. And time is, he will stay there until samsara ends, until all beings have been brought to their paradise.
Can I ask a question regarding teaching them the Dharma? Because Dharma is restraining, right?
Well, Dharma has several meanings, but Dharma means teaching. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the Dharma is teaching. But yeah, it's teaching that
To a higher level of restraint, I guess?
Yeah, it's teaching you basically karma and emptiness is what it comes down to. For the many bodhisattvas, we need to learn to, understand this and practice it, restrain ourselves in difficult situations. But for them, there's no restraining, they're way beyond that, right? So it's teaching. He might be teaching them how to teach suffering beings. Yeah. So those are the qualities. And then we have the next body is Ngoa Niku. Say it. Swabhavakaya in Sanskrit. It's hard, huh? My handwriting's not so great then. Swabhavakaya. But you can just say essence body.
Can I just
Essence body.
Oh, essence.
Yeah.
Can you kindly repeat what the Dharmakaya is compared to the Rupakaya?
Yeah, Rupakaya is form body. And Dharmakaya is mind.
Mind body.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So the essence body is the emptiness of body 1, 2, and 4. Okay. So the essence body, you could say, has 2 parts. First of all, it's the emptiness that a Buddha has always had. The ultimate nature, right? Even when he was a plain person, he had this emptiness. And that can be mistaken by some people to think that, you're already a Buddha now or something.
Because we all have that emptiness.
because we all have that emptiness. But that's not what it means. What it means is it's potential, right? Because emptiness isn't something. Emptiness is something that isn't there. And because something isn't there, we can become a Buddha, you know, because of this lack. And that's difficult to understand. So yeah, we are empty, and when you're a Buddha, you'll be empty too. So in that sense, it's the same. In that sense, you have something now that you will have then. But then it sounds like you have it, and it's not like you have it. You don't have it. That's
do the time. You could get the merit to put into your emptiness to be able to get the Buddha, become the Buddha.
You need to collect merit in order to see yourself change into a Buddha being. So the quality of how you see yourself will change, right? And that doesn't mean that other people will see that change in you, you know. Some people might not, you know. There's this famous teacher, Naropa, Master Naropa, that you may have heard about. I mean, he looked like a bum, like he looked homeless. He looked, you know, wearing rags and, you know, had long hair, was dirty and everything. I mean, people thought he was a bum. But that's not how he saw himself, you know. It wasn't. So you need to have... Even there's a story about a famous disciple of Lord Buddha who stayed with Lord Buddha for 12 years. And after 12 years he said, I don't know what's so special about this guy. Yeah, I see a bit of a halo around his head, but other than that, I don't know. You know? So it's not... Yeah.
I have a connection with that. Coming back from our trip,
Yeah.
We were in Tenerife and we were waiting for the plane, and there was a group of tourists, and this one fellow, at first I was so irritated by him. I had to actually do a lot of mental work to clear it. He was yelling at the woman he was with, one of them, just ordering her. She was sitting eating a salad, yelled at her, go do it, and she got up immediately, and it was just, I was so livid about that. Mm-hmm. And then he's in line to some, and he's actually, like, he's burping in front of us, and it smelled horrible, and then he started burping, and then chewing gum, like his mouth was open, and he was drooling, and then he spat it out just before we entered on the plane, and I was so upset. I told the woman to be careful not to step on the gum, because the, you know, the conductor, whoever, you know, removes the lift, would have stepped on this big chunk of gum. And I was just like, and Patrick's like, well, you better be careful because your karma could be sitting next to him. And I just was like, okay, no. So anyways, he sat a little further up and the woman who sat next to me, he actually came up to her and was talking to her in conversation. He was not as loud and as obnoxious as he was in the waiting area. And not only that, but I noticed, like, there was a group of them that many others came up to him and they were all talking to him and they looked up to him. And then I was in my mind, I was thinking, you know, this could be a Buddha. Mariska talking about Buddhist forms of things that you don't like the farting, the burping, the belching, and the smells and all of that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it was this, like, you know, switch of thought. But it was really fascinating because I saw that, and the other group of the people who he was with didn't mind.
They didn't have that experience.
I thought he was really inappropriate in many ways.
Yeah.
But the rest of the people he was with didn't think this.
And that's great. I think it's always wonderful when you think about something.
And I started to change.
Yeah.
My mind started to let go. And then when he was talking there, I saw something different. I mean, I still was kind of, but, you know, but I started to not feel so like annoyed and irritated
Yeah.
and repulsed by him.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always love that when it happens, when you have a strong feeling towards someone and then someone else comes in and proves you wrong, proves your own mind wrong, that it's actually, it's my problem, it's not the person's problem, right? It's like, if you are challenged, then that means you have something to work on, because he could be burping and farting in front of you and it wouldn't bother you, then you didn't have any work to do there. But when it bothers you, okay, there's something left here. That's why he's here. He's doing that just to help me get over this, to see the emptiness of this fart.
Great story.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to keep going. So we have the emptiness body, the essence body, which is in two parts. So the first part is like the emptiness. The second part is the cessations. Okay, that's the second part of the essence body, is cessations. And what does that mean? A cessation is the end of something, right? So in this case, the end of his bad thoughts, of his ignorance. So it's the lack of something that went away, like when you all of a sudden stop believing in Santa Claus, right? You cannot then start believing in Santa Claus anymore. Once you've had the cessation, it's very clear. It's gone. It's done forever.
A serious moment of suffering, though.
Yeah. I'm talking and my daughter is sitting there. Hopefully she didn't hear that. Okay, so that's a cessation. So when you get rid of your mental afflictions, they can't come back. Okay, when you have cessation, and that then it becomes the absence of anger, the absence of jealousy. Now then, the last body, se yashe chuku. Jnana Dharmakaya in Sanskrit. And this is the wisdom body. Yashe means wisdom. The wisdom body means the omniscience of Buddha, which means the ability for Buddha to see all things.
Can you repeat that again?
The omniscience of a Buddha. Omniscience means the ability to see all things, to know all things. And in the case of a Buddha, like, what is the most useful thing to know is what people should do and don't do, right? In order to help them to get over suffering. It's not like knowing all the complicated math questions or something. Like, there's no point in knowing that. You want to get out of suffering, so he knows exactly what you need to do. So the Rupakaya is the form body, Dharmakaya is, we say, the wisdom body. So wisdom relates to the mind, right? Okay.
So it's almost like omission is like to omission body is like to omit all negative or omit anything. That to know is to have omission of anything negative.
Well, that's more the cessation, I think,
Okay.
is to get rid of anything negative. Omniscience is just to know everything. So when a Buddha looks at anybody, they can see how you see yourself, and they can see your enlightenment, they can see both. They don't, yeah. So they know exactly what you need to do in order to move forward. And then they can emanate to help you do that, if you have the karma for that in place, of course. So all those marks that we were talking about, the reason why Subhuti said they don't exist is because what? Why don't they exist?
Because they're not self-existent.
There you go. Yeah.
So only the person that has the karma to see them will see them.
Yeah, they are deceptive, right? They don't exist truly. Just like anything, right? Nothing exists truly. Things only exist deceptively because I label them a certain way, right? I label this thing as a teapot because I'm forced to label it as a teapot. Doesn't mean like it truly is a teapot, because we can prove that if someone comes in here who's never seen a teapot, they don't think, oh, there's a teapot. You know, they don't. So, do I see a teapot? Yeah, is that fine? Totally fine. But it's not truly a teapot. But it functions as a teapot. It's fine. It can make tea in it. There's no problem there.
So you could see somebody with long ears and the fingernails and like a few of the signs and think that they're a chakra vatan.
Mm-hmm.
But then somebody else might just think they're just ordinary.
Yeah, or what a weirdo.
Yeah, like funny long ears. Oh, that's aging.
Yeah.
Everybody over like 75 is a Buddha. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe they are. So Buddha's marks are deceptive. Okay. They look self-existent, but they are not. Just like anything else. That's why they said no. The marks and signs do not exist. They don't exist truly. Okay. So then the very last thing in this reading, the Buddha repeats himself. He says, the Buddha has no marks. He says it twice. He says, Subhuti, the Buddha has no marks. There are no marks on the Buddha. And the commentator that we are using, Shone Drakpa Lama, he says there's a reason for that. He says it twice. And why would you think they would say it twice? What could it mean, like in two different ways?
It was said the same way twice.
Sorry?
It was just repeated twice or said
Yeah.
differently?
Yeah. So each one of them refers to something else. So I'll just tell you. The first time it means like the physical parts of the Buddha. His hair, his color, all of it is deceptive, empty, right? So it means when the Buddha looks down at himself, he has the karma to see this blank screen to label it as how he sees himself, okay? So his physical parts are empty, but he's forced to perceive himself this way, okay? Then the second part, what do you think that would be? If the first part is body, then what would the second part be?
Mind.
Yeah, his mind is empty too. So even his mind.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
If this is so, then why is it that we see the Buddha as this all kind of, big-bellied? Yeah. Why is
Well, that
that?
one doesn't have a big belly.
Slim. There's the slim belly.
There,
or
as
the
I
big
said,
belly.
there's one with the not top, not the Malay.
Why is it? Is it just an interpretation of whatever we
Sure. I mean,
Why
it's
is it not a blonde woman or a
Because it comes from ancient Indian. It comes from the. But does anybody know where it comes from? The actual slim line Buddha with the little.
Top knot?
Yeah. No, the top knot, or he's depicted with little kind of balls on his head, like lots and lots of little balls.
yeah.
I thought those were
India.
curls
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
their hair would be curly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the big bellied one, which is from the Chinese.
Chinese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that also means like abundance.
Abundance,
Yes.
And
yes.
laughing, Buddha belly. So happy.
There's always
Yeah,
certain
and I think-
interpretations of the
And
way
mine,
they see
yeah.
it, but not the way
I
Buddha
think
sees
so.
himself. Okay.
Yeah.
However you want to see it.
Yeah, you
Right.
don't know how they see themselves, right?
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, according to the scriptures, they see themselves with all these marks and signs. But I think it's hard for us to relate to how they would feel when they look, at their own body. Just like
The painters of
you don't know how I see myself, right? Just like that. Like you see me a certain way, and I see myself a completely different way, right? So I think that's the same for the Buddha. So his physical parts are empty, and then his mental parts are empty. So even that is labeled. He's forced to see himself with an omniscient mind because of all the virtue that he's done. He can't help it. Just like I cannot help it to see a teapot. I cannot turn this into a giraffe. I have to see a teapot. And just in that same way, he sees himself the way he does because he's forced to see himself that way. And see the way he thinks and everything. So the Buddha projects onto his mind total compassion and omniscience because he has done such good deeds, right? You could think of it like my marks and signs might still be like jealousy, anger. I could see those as marks and signs. And as I travel this path, hopefully they will transform into compassion and love, and those will become my signs. Yeah. And I'll have a cessation of all the parts that aren't helping to become happy. And by doing kind deeds, you will achieve that. You must. If karma is true. If karma is true, then if you're kind, nothing bad can ever come from being kind, right? Only the bad stuff comes from something you've done before that was not kind. And that, my dears, is class.
Is it a shorter reading?
They're pretty short. Yeah. It's a nice change from the last course. Those are really hard readings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. These ones
Yeah, short.
are short and sweet.
Yeah, easier
Very
to
sweet.
read.
Yeah, easier to read,
Mhm.
but still like deep. There's a lot we can say about it, right? And a lot we can think about.
This is the first class that I ever entered into regionals with. This is the class
yeah,
that John was teaching on my first night when I came in. Yeah,
that's nice.
so it's such a long time ago.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that again. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sashibuki
Joshi Meito Dramri Rabling Shi Nyende Genpadi Sange Shindu Meteo Girokunam Shimba Chupasho Itangura Gewadi Keoko Tsunam Yeshe Tsotsoshi Tsunam Yeshe Zenshowe Dampaguni Topasho. Thank you guys for hanging in there and being so involved.